Hello guys, Michael here with another video. Today I want to talk about the learning process to become really good at conversations, especially if you are a man that wants to create emotional connection that sparks attraction with women through conversations. And yes, that is what the signs are showing. Women get attracted when they are with you, and based on your way of communicating with her will lead to whether she feel close to you, drawn to you, attracted to you or not. So being good at conversations is very crucial if you want to be successful with attracting women. How to become good at this? How to go from not knowing much at all to become really good at it. And that is not a quick fix. However, it's fully possible if you are dedicated. Let's start from the beginning and see what elements we have to think about in the beginning, all right? So in the beginning stage, we have to make sure that all the strategies, the methods that you will learn and apply into your day-by-day life is scientifically grounded. We don't want to use methods developed by other people's experiences and those people are making it as a rule of thumb. No, we cannot use that. We have to use solid, scientific, grounded principles and then apply it into the real world scenarios. Because the scientific community have done a lot. They have measured the neurotransmitters that is relevant in attraction, especially during conversations. They've done a lot of research on what elements is the most important thing in conversations that gives an impact towards the other person. I mean, those research papers, those scientific research that has been made are so robust that we just have to take that as a fact. However, here comes the thing. A theory and then the actual practicality of it is two different things. So when you are using practical methods that are based on a scientific theory and principles, there is an element of execution, I would say. You have to be able to execute it in the proper way. Otherwise, it won't work as good or it won't work at all. So in the beginning, you need to start learning methods and techniques that you can apply on your day-by-day life that are scientifically grounded. So let's say that we have that. You have now read my book, for example, but you have now read the theory of interpersonal communication and likability science. And you do have a feeling of how a conversation should look like and what elements in the conversation gives real impact. So you know that now in the beginning stage. But now you want to actually apply it and make it a part of you. It's not enough for you to know it by reading it and then acknowledge it in your head. You need to live it. I'm saying it again. You have to live it, all right? You have to apply it and put it into your day-by-day routines, your day-by-day life over and over again. So it becomes a part of you. Because there are some elements in conversations that is very hard to crack unless you make it as a habit in your day-by-day life. One of them is listening skills. Being able to listen to certain cues and then take those cues and make a deep conversation based on those cues takes time to learn. If you will be super concentrated, you might, as a beginner, be able to extract those cues once in a while and then doing the right thing by taking them into depth and start, having meaningful conversations. But that will be if you are super concentrated. It will not be automatic. And we want to go to the stage of doing things automatic. All right? We don't want to always be super concentrated when we are talking to women, for example. And having a super ear to truly listen to what she says and then really, really, really take those important cues and then make something happen. I mean, obviously, we want to be the guy that don't need to think about anything at all. And we just hear those things. We just hear the cues. We just, everything just coming in automatically. And then you can be this guy that are very relaxed. You don't need to have any kind of mind thinking that you have to really pay attention to what she says or something like that. No, you want that to be very natural and coming to you completely automatic. So how to get to that point? Well, you have to start talking to a lot of people. A lot. And obviously, unless you are living in a forest somewhere, you are talking to a lot of people every day. You're doing that. So you can apply the right techniques and methods to teach yourself to listen, to really learn and grasp the concept of listening skills, for example. Once you hear something, you can apply methods of how to ask a follow-up question. You can apply methods like reflective listening. How can you make sure the other person feel truly understood by reflecting back to them? All those techniques and methods you can use on your day-by-day life. But remember, you have to do every single element over and over again for quite some time before it becomes a part of you. This is nothing that you can just, look yourself in the mirror and repeat for yourself. No, you have to do it on the spot. You have to do it when you're talking to people. I get it. It's not easy to only try to use this methodology, only with women you find attractive, because that means that you have to go and approach a lot of women. Some men are ready to do that. Some men are just going and approaching 10, 20 women a day. But most guys don't, and most guys can't do it. Does that mean that they can't learn? No, they can learn. Truly, they can learn by talking to women at work, for example. It doesn't have to be those super hot women that you find super attractive. It can be basically anyone that you are talking to at work. And then suddenly when you're having a conversation with them, you can just, okay, now I'm going to train asking good questions. And you just go into this asking question mode for training purposes. Or you're going to go to this completely listening mode. And then you're just going to focus on being able to listen to at least one or two cues that comes from her talk, all her sentences that she's saying. You're just trying to, practice on listen to keywords that you feel like, oh, I can take that cue, that word, and elaborate on that by asking a follow-up question and so on. You can do that as well, no problem. And you don't have to approach a lot of women to do that. You can actually practice with ordinary people in your day-by-day life. However, I can tell you this, if you want to have a fast track to learn this as fast as possible, well, then approaching women, being able to break the ice with women will probably be the absolute fastest way. But you can actually manage to do it without approaching anyone, at least in the beginning. And here comes the thing as well, for those guys out there that have hard time to actually approach women, because most guys have that problem. It feels almost impossible to approach women, especially when you see this woman that are super beautiful and you just want to go and talk with her, but you just can't. I get that feeling. Most guys do have that feeling. Most guys just can't go and talk with that woman. And here comes the thing. If you start learning the right techniques and methods in communication that builds great conversations, they build trust, they build bond, emotional connection, that sparks attraction and all that, then you will actually be confident enough because you trust your skills to go and talk with that woman eventually. So if you will actually go and practice those skills with ordinary people, so it really sticks in your head, and then you really are proficient on listening. You know how to listen, you know how to ask questions, you know how to reflect back, you know communication techniques, you know communication method, you know how to, be really curious about another person and apply strategies and methods to really extract information with you being curious. Then when you have that knowledge, it will be easier for you to go and start approaching from that stage. So for me, example, I wasn't a guy that learned communication skills by approaching women. I didn't. I practiced first by talking to everyone around me. People at work, people in my social circle, people that just came up to me or my group and just start talking. And then when we had a normal conversation, I took the chance to actually practicing a couple of elements in communication that, made me slowly more and more proficient. And then when I decided to approach a lot of women, my proficiency level was already, let's say 6 out of 10 or 7 out of 10 already. And it made so much easier for me to actually go up and start talking. Obviously, I still felt approach anxiety, but it was so much easier anyway, to get over the approach anxiety and start a conversation, because I knew exactly how to hold a good conversation. And the intent for myself was already there. She's attractive. I want to learn to know her. I want to date her, and I want to take it further. So I want to do that, and I also want to have that intent. But instead of saying a lot of flirtatious things and so on, I just wanted to be curious by asking her a couple of questions and reflect back, tell something about myself, making it very balanced as it should be. I knew all that, and I applied that, and it worked perfectly. And if I didn't know that skill of having a great conversation that leads somewhere, I'm not certain that I will be able to approach them in the first place. It's because of the competence I had in conversations that made me get over the hurdle of actually approaching women. So that is maybe the best way to go for most of you guys out there. I mean, even if you learn the basis, even if you learn the theories and how to apply the practical methods in order to make it practical, if you haven't done it so much, you will fail in the beginning. There are so many things that you just couldn't pull off. It's so many things that made your brain go completely blank and you just didn't know what to do. Those kind of situations happens all the time in the beginning, even with those that are around you that you don't feel any pressure about. But obviously, when you talk with beautiful women after a cold approach, you will feel maximum pressure. And being able to think about, oh, how should I ask that question again? How should I listen again? I mean, that is not a good way to go. Many times it's better to already have that in your head and then start applying it in masses. So basically, when I started to approach my first 100 women together with James Tusk team and all that, I noticed that my skill level went from maybe 7 out of 10 to 10 out of 10 or 9 out of 10. It was only like 2 points extra because I knew a lot of things already. I just fine-tuned it even more when it comes to women and attracting them, date them. So it wasn't like a huge skill gap between before I started approaching women and after I started to approach women. The good news is that you can practice in the beginning without approaching and being rejected a lot of times in the beginning. You can actually practice, more easily before you reach a certain competence level, and then you can start to approach women. That is how to actually become really good with it. You have to live it. I'm saying it again. You have to live it, breathe it. All right? There is no other way around. What about training then? What about courses? What about coaching? One of the most effective way that I've noticed based on thousands of clients that I have been coaching communication skills is that the bridge between theory and practice, that bridge will contain a lot of role plays that illustrate real life scenarios. And those role plays and breakdowns of real situations is what can really accelerate anybody's process. It's not always the theory itself. The theory itself you can actually, learn quite quickly. Let's say hypothetically that let's say that you had my book and you read my book and you know the theories already. Now you're going to make it practical. It will still take a lot of time if you're doing it on your own, because you need to do it repetitively over and over again in the beginning. And doing it in the beginning and get all those rejections or all those failures is pretty hard. If you had something in the middle there, for example, you make some role plays with me, and then I pretend to be a woman walking down the street, and you are the guy that's trying to apply the right conversational tools in order to make something happen, we can just ball it back and forth. And in the beginning, like everyone else that's starting with role plays with me, they fail completely. Almost everyone fails. And it takes time to practicing over and over again, until we can find the moment where, you know what, you got this. You got this now. And when you got it, and then now you step out from your home and you're going to approach women for real. On the street, in the cafe, in the shopping mall, maybe at your work with the woman that you haven't been speaking to before. Wow. After that kind of training, you will be able to execute everything almost immediately. And that is extremely powerful. It is. So when it comes to coaching, one of the main things that makes you from A to B in the quickest possible way is actually the interactional skills practically you're having with the coach is invaluable. So that is how to become really good at it. Okay, so another hint also, neuroscientifically, is that the brain needs to create all those neural pathways when you're learning something new. It's like rewiring your brain here and there. And your brain, I mean, you have a cognitive ability, right? You have a cognitive function. And there is a specific form of cognitive function called cognitive flexibility. That flexibility can only be obtained if you have been practicing complex questions, problems, situations for the brain to really get the brain ongoing to see those complex situations and make it uncomplicated. So the brain feels like, oh, I get it now. It's complicated, but now I have a flexibility to use every neural pathways to really make that complicated situation into a normal situation. And that calls neuroplasticity. If you have cognitive flexibility, which is based on, in neuroscience, something called experience-dependent neuroplasticity, which basically means that you have been repeating yourself in complicated situations for the brain over and over again, the brain will be able to handle all complicated situations. And the good part is having conversations with people is regarded as a complicated situation for the brain. So every time you start talking to people with intent of being curious, with intent to be able to ask the right questions, to listen and all that, is complicated situation for the brain. And your brain, without you thinking consciously, are trying to solve the puzzle all the time, trying to solve the situation. The brain is working really, really hard, rewiring the neural pathways here and there to make sure that you can handle complicated situations easily, effortlessly. And you will do that with practice. Now, let's say that you are proficient in this now. Then it will look like this. You're going up to a woman, you start talking with her, and everything she says just goes straight into your brain. You can even choose which part of that sentence you want to talk about, which part of that sentence that you just know without thinking is important to dig deeper in order to make a meaningful conversation. You will be able to push all the emotional elements in order to really enhance the feeling, for her to feel, wow, that guy gets me. That guy understands me. I feel so great. I feel so drawn to that person. I feel so drawn to that man. I want to see him again. This is the first time I felt like this to someone. That is the response you get after you know how to communicate properly. What I'm talking about exactly is to use empathy in conversations, because that is a superpower. I'm not just saying it because I think it's a superpower. Empathy in conversations is regarded as a superpower amongst all the specialists out there. Psychologists, interpersonal communication experts, negotiators that are really in for high-level negotiation through conversations. They say the same thing. So the whole scientific community will regard empathy as a superpower. So take that with you. And make sure that if you want to be good at this, make sure to learn in the right, proper way. One of the worst things you can do is to start learning stuff over and over again that is not scientifically grounded and can't be regarded as something that you can generalize. You can't do it, you know. It's like, what will happen if you're using or learning a strategy that works for a certain type of man, but you're not that type of man? And then suddenly you're learning something that not only helps you, but goes against you. And suddenly you have that in automated basis. That is not good. You don't want to be there. It will be terrible. I've seen a lot of those cases with old pickup guys that learn a lot of things that didn't help them at all, because they are not helping. They are not triggering the neurotransmitters in people's minds to make them feel something. And interpersonal communication are very linked to neuroscience. When we are talking, when we are having conversation, we want to spark something. The thing that we want to spark are those chemicals in the brains that are connected with emotions. And when I say emotions, I also mean the feeling of being drawn to someone, the feeling of bonding, the feeling of attraction. All those things are neurotransmitters in your brain, basically, in women's brain, that determine of how they will feel. So take that with you, and I'll see you in the next video.